Hello, everybody. Can you all hear me okay? Hey, Sam. Awesome. Give everyone a minute to join. I see some people coming in. Happy Thursday. It is right now. Can't believe it's already Thursday. So give everyone a second. So excited to have everyone here today. Best kept secrets of high performing influencer campaigns is what we're going to be covering. So I'm going to dive in just a second. While we're waiting for people to join, I'm curious. We have a poll that we'll put up, kind of what you all are currently using for your influencer campaign. So Sam, if you want to throw that poll up. So are you doing it DIY or using an agency, a platform, or haven't run one yet, or if you're working with us? Awesome. Yeah, this just helps know what everyone's doing. So it looks like we got some DIYers. So we want some of everything. Awesome. Oh, excited to see we have some of our own customers, clients here. So hopefully you can all get some value. We're going to cover it, whether you're doing it DIY, an agency, or using Statusphere. This should be beneficial to you as we cover all of the tips and secrets that we've noticed in running hundreds, if not thousands of campaigns myself in the influencer marketing space. It's very cool. Great. So while everyone's joining, I'll give a little background on myself. So my name is Kristen Wiley, founder of Statusphere. I know also if you don't follow me on LinkedIn and you like getting lots of content on influencer marketing and marketing in general, be sure to follow me on LinkedIn. There's a little button. I post tons of content like this all the time and like to stay up to date on exactly what's going on in the industry. So that's a great place to follow me, chat with me. Love talking about marketing in general and influencer marketing specifically. So founder of Statusphere. My background is I was actually on the creator side as an influencer back in the day, and I also worked at agencies reaching out to creators and running campaigns for brands. And that's really where I saw a hole in the market, and really we're seeing great results with micro influencers, but I didn't see that there was a platform to help it scale. So that's why I created Statusphere. Statusphere specifically helps brands scale micro influencer marketing. And we are a turnkey solution that can get you creators posting with very little legwork on your end and truly be able to scale this marketing channel for your brand. We've worked with over 400 brands, lots of industries. Probably our most popular are going to be beauty and CPG. We work with tons of brands in that category, but we've also worked with some other brands as well, as you can see here. And just to highlight the problem that I saw in the space was that micro influencers were working really great for the brands that I was working with, but it took forever to get them posting. It takes on average 70 hours just to get 30 people posting. So with Statusphere, we are able to take that 70 hours, turn it into 1 hour, and instead of just 30 people posting, we can get hundreds of people posting. So obviously, if that's something interesting to you and you want to see how that would work for your brand, reach out to our team. We're happy to do a discovery call and see if it's a good fit for you, or give you resources if for some reason it isn't the fit for your solution. So feel free to book a discovery call if you're interested in that. So what we're going to cover today, jumping into it, first, how to set up your campaign goals for your influencer marketing campaigns, the best creators to work with and how to find them, steps for successful influencer campaigns in general, examples of them, and how to pick the best approach for your brand. So jumping into it, first, goals, expectations, and mindset, which I think is really great place to start. So first, taking a look at just the overall industry and what brands are spending on. So Influencer Budget Outlook 2022, 77% of marketers plan to have a dedicated influencer marketing budget for this year, and going into next year, 71% of marketers plan to increase their budget as well. So you can see that this is definitely a category that spend is moving over to, especially with all of the crazy iOS updates that happened. People are really trying to find other solutions to bring down their customer acquisition costs, and influencer marketing is really becoming a main category for that. Now, in terms of campaign goals amongst brands, the top 2 goals is reaching new audiences and generating engagement. I just kind of wanted to show this if you're curious, like based on your goals, what other brands are using influencer campaigns for. You can see here a breakdown. Strengthening community is the next one, promoting your brand's values. And we'll talk through exactly how you can really optimize in each of these categories. But this gives you an idea of what most marketers are looking for when partnering with creators. So in terms of those top goals, so building brand awareness, building community, supporting sales efforts, and earning user-generated content. Those are the top ones that we hear as well when brands are coming to work with us. So first, talking about benefits of brand awareness and social proof. So I know after being a marketer I've been doing influencer marketing campaigns since 2010, so really seeing the evolution of what's happened. But I feel like the term brand awareness, it kind of has a weird connotation. Big brands are always, they invest a ton in it because they can see the value, but sometimes it's harder for smaller brands to really understand how it can affect and help move people down your funnel. So here's some stats that I wanted to share. So building brand awareness is the #1 goal of brands in 2022. The average influencer engagement rate on Instagram is 1.7 times that of brands. So it makes sense why brands are partnering with creators if they can get almost double the engagement of what brands are getting on their own. 82% of people performing a search will click on a brand they know first, which is why brand awareness is so important. And brand awareness builds brand equity, aka a higher perceived value, which can lead to higher prices, higher stocks, all of that from a larger perspective. And one little quote I like to put here is like, does your brand even exist if we can't find you on social media? And that is really how a lot of millennial, Gen Z, and I would argue even older generations would say things now. If you Google something and you can't find that brand, or you search them on Instagram and you can't find them, like, do they even exist? So that's why it's really important to have at least a presence on there and build brand awareness on those platforms. So how influencers help with that? 60% of marketers report influencer content gets more engagement and performs better than brand content, like we talked about on the last slide. So influencers help brands build identity, trust, overcome social algorithms. As you know, most algorithms really don't promote brand content. They like to promote creator content. So by working with creators, it's a way to get around those algorithms. It also helps expand reach and just humanize your brand in general by helping put a real face of someone who's using your product with it. In terms of user-generated content as your goal, consumers say that product demos and real customer reviews are the most in-demand types of social content. So that's why UGC is so valuable, is because that's what consumers want. Consumers are 6 times as likely to purchase a product featuring social photos and UGC versus pages without them, which is a very powerful statistic. So in terms of ways that you're repurposing creator content, repurposing in your marketing materials on your product pages, you can increase conversion rates just by sprinkling more UGC into your marketing mix. Micro influencers promote the most content per dollar spent. So if you are looking for UGC, it makes sense versus big celebrities. You may only get a couple pieces of content, but if you work with micros, you can work with tons of them for the same budget and get lots of pieces of content. And then 64% of shoppers prefer brand social posts with UGC over product shots. And this is actually like, there's many studies that are done on this where they will do ads featuring user-generated content versus professional photography, and the UGC will perform better. So how influencers can help with this, obviously, it can take forever to source it organically. So if you're running specific influencer campaigns, you can get the UGC of the type of products you need in a systematic way. Influencers allow you to do it at scale. And just as an example, just the sheer scale that is possible, we worked with Curlsmith to do a campaign and got over 6,200 pieces of content in 10 months with working just with micros. So you can just see it, just the scalability of creating content is just so much better if you're doing it with your influencer campaigns, and specifically on the micro side. Next, the goal of building brand community. I think brand community is becoming one of the most important categories for a brand. People want to be able to relate to that brand, and they actually want to relate to the other people buying that brand. And I think the brands that are worth the most, that can charge the most, that have the best conversion rates, have that strong community. So 62% of marketers work with creators to strengthen community on social, and influencers forge more relevant connections with followers and consumers than other sources. And it makes sense. Once again, human to human connection is going to be a lot stronger if you can put a face and a human with someone using your brand. So some stats that I found pretty interesting is influencers with less than 5,000 followers have the highest engagement rate. So that's, if you're really looking to build that community, if they're a smaller amount of followers, they probably can connect with them more, and it makes more sense that they would have that higher engagement rate. And then influencer generated content outperforms traditional branded content. So we talked about that on the UGC slide, but obviously this also helps with brand building. And then with more repostable content on hand, brands can maintain more consistent posting schedule. So if you are working it into your terms of your influencer contracts, that you can repurpose the content on social, then that gives you a steady stream of amazing content that you can share on your own feed as well, that will have higher engagement statistically than if you were to create it on your own. So lots of benefits there. And then lastly, I hear this all the time, I want it to support sales efforts. Obviously, that's, I think, the ultimate goal of all marketing efforts is to get people down the funnel. 62% of consumers are more likely to buy a product if they can see a consumer photo or video of it. 61% of TikTok users actively shop and research products on the platform. 44% of consumers shop on Instagram weekly. So just think about these stats. If you're trying to support sales efforts, these are very strong stats that prove that you should be on these platforms and should be reaching out to people and helping pull them through the sales funnel. But with that said, I'm going to get into it next about the trackability and how that is hard in the attribution piece, because it does take 7 touches on average to convert someone to a sale. So if you think about that, you may not see the sales immediately or directly. Also, it's very hard to track, which once again, I'll get to that in a second. But just understanding that the weight of a creator's essentially touch point to a consumer is pretty heavy. It has trust built in. It has social proof built in. So that touch point can really help push people down the funnel overall. And that's why we see this other stat over here, that brands see a 15% increase on their return on ad spend when running creator ads as well with business as usual ads. So really incorporating creators into your overall strategy can help bring down even your cost of your CPMs and things like that. So pretty cool to see how it's really a multi-channel approach is the way to go. But there isn't just a silver bullet where you can only do creator and nothing else. And the reason for that is because the buyer's journey is all over the place. I just saw a friends on LinkedIn share a really great stat that was talking about, we asked our customers where they came from, and then we compared it to where our attribution software said they came from, and they didn't line up at all. And why is that? Why does your attribution software say all of your ads or your all of your sales come from Facebook ads and Google ads? And when you ask customers, they tell you it comes from social media and influencers and word of mouth. That's because the buyer's journey is not linear. People don't just see an ad and buy immediately. Those ads actually convert best for people who are at the bottom of the funnel, who have already had several touch points to get them there. So if you look at this crazy chaos right here and start at the little start flag, people they need a product. They see some people post about it. They get a text from a friend. They read about it. They Google. Then they might finally see an ad and purchase, and your attribution software will only count those last little click right there. So this is just something to keep in mind when you're, measuring the effectiveness of your creator campaigns. You should be doing it on a holistic level, not on a super granular, just looking at your attribution software, because not only is that not accurate most of the time, but then also with these new iOS and privacy updates, it's becoming even harder to see. So I do have an entire webinar on this, which Sam, if you could share it, Sam is our wonderful marketing manager who can throw that link up there. But if you are interested in doing a deep dive on marketing attribution in 2022, would recommend that webinar. But this is just a little taste of it that I want to talk about. So now jumping back into how influencers can help with these sales, it increases the number of touch points your audience has with the brand. It builds trust, social proof, and increases buyer readiness. And then it just creates authentic content that you can use throughout your marketing funnel. You can use it in ads, and whitelisting, product pages, landing pages, email marketing. So overall, you can see how influencer marketing campaigns can really help with your overall goal of sales, but it is helpful to know that it should be part of a bigger strategy. And now getting into the expectations and why they matter. So I loved going through like a few almost direct quotes I've heard from brands over the years. So first one is, other brands are going viral, but mine isn't, so it must not work for my brand. First of all, ever since TikTok came out, it is incredible to see the amount of brands that can go viral for any topic area. Like it used to be, I feel like you had to have a sexy, fun, amazing like branded product to go viral, but on TikTok, honestly, people just want products that work. I've seen cleaning products go viral. I've seen, obviously we've seen lots of beauty products go viral, but it is pretty incredible that if you are solving an acute need that, and somebody creates an engaging piece of content and it really strikes a chord, that it can go viral. So the thing is that most of these brands that you're like, oh, they went viral for this or that, it's because they're doing it consistently and they're consistently working with creators. It's really a numbers game, especially on TikTok and now on Reels. It's definitely not about follower count. It's about consistent good content. And eventually, if you're constantly working at it, something will normally take off if you're iterating on it. And we'll talk about how to optimize your campaign a little later to help increase these chances as you're going. But most of the time, I find that it's because brands aren't doing it long enough and learning from it. And you'll see that as a very common thread throughout this is that it takes time to optimize and get the most out of your campaigns. So if you're going to just do an influencer campaign for a month or 2 or 3, like you're not getting the most. It may not even be worth it because you're just getting the learnings just with any marketing to really apply it moving forward. Another myth that I hear all the time is, I'm not seeing clicks or conversions from TikTok or Instagram, so it must not be working. I don't want to do this anymore because like I don't see the sales. My attribution software is not showing it, all of that. So I just want to also really highlight this, that social media apps are designed to keep users in the app. So because of this, if they're not intended to be very clickable, and you've probably noticed this, if you're on TikTok or Instagram and you go to click a link, it'll even tell you like, you're leaving Instagram. Are you sure you want to? That's because these platforms want to keep people on the platforms. Because of this, your attribution and your links, like you can't track this through normal links. You must track this as a holistic, marketing spend, just like I talked about earlier. So just overall, keep in mind, clicks on conversions aren't everything. What's actually important is to look at, hey, let me make a spreadsheet of all the different marketing mix that I'm doing and what my conversion rate and sales were at before, and then see how it changes over time. And that's why it's a long-term play, and it is looking at it holistically, not at just that last click software. And then next, back to this, I tried it for a few months. It didn't work for my brand. It's a long-term play. If you're not going to invest in influencer marketing long-term, I don't even know if it's worth it to do so. It really should be a main part of your marketing mix if you're looking to get the most value out of it. Ongoing campaigns generate better content, more social proof, just because you can optimize moving forward. And then this is one of my favorite myths. This happens way too common, so I wanted to highlight it here. We get a brand that goes to run a campaign, and they tell us, we're going to send the creators this product right here because we really have trouble selling it. So like, let's give support to that product and let's ship it out. This is, I think, one of the biggest mistakes you can make is trying to get creators to promote a product that you already have issues selling. If you're having issues selling it, you probably need to fix some other things first. Getting it in creators' hands isn't going to fix the sellability piece. I always recommend doing top sellers. We'll get through like nitty gritty product recommendations shortly, but best sellers are always great because that means the creator is going to love it genuinely and then talk so highly of it that other people are going to want to buy it. And it is common in brands that you have like a few hero products that you hook people with, and then you hopefully expand them into your other products and get them to buy other ones. So with influencer marketing, it makes sense that you would probably want to start with that hero product if you're going to want it to run the best that you can. So just something to keep in mind when you're selecting the products to run. Now, if you're just trying to get UGC for a product, that's one thing. That's fine to use that and just understand that it may not have the best engagement if you are sending a product that doesn't have your highest conversion or your highest customer feedback, I should say. So just going into that secret number one, this is secrets that we're revealing in this webinar. So brands that win with creators are doing a long-term mentality. The brands, like if you think of any brand that you're like, wow, that, they really come up all the time. I always think about them, like Chipotle, they're not just doing this once. They have a dedicated budget, and they know that this is a main part of their spend, right? When Glossier built their entire thing off of just working with creators, like this is a long-term play. And if you want to make the most of it, you should be investing long-term. What does this mean? So think of it like SEO, blogging, even email marketing. Like you wouldn't just try email marketing for 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months and then be like, well, did it work? No, you have to actually, make tweaks and experiment. So we always encourage our brands that you're running a campaign, see what you learn from it, tweak it moving forward, tweak the messaging, tweak the creative brief as you get that feedback. We actually have a way in our system too to even mark content that, is top performing. So you can start seeing trends, right? Between like maybe it's a day in the life videos start doing really well, but you started by letting creators post about anything they wanted, but you noticed a trend that like 5 of those did very well in terms of engagement. So maybe you want to do a campaign specifically about a day in a life. So like that's an example of how you want to iterate and learn moving forward. And then in terms of reasons for influencer marketing fails, I find that they normally fall into 3 categories if it's really your campaign is flopping. First, the marketing mix. So always check first your website. Is it mobile responsive? What does that experience look like to click to your website or to Google your website if they see the product on Instagram? Because that is a very common user flow. I know I do it myself. I'll be scrolling on Instagram or TikTok and I see a creator post about something and I'm like, oh, I want to go Google this. Well, if I Google it and your brand doesn't come up, then that isn't super helpful for conversions as well. So like looking at things overall in terms of how your other marketing mix relays over to creator side. And then obviously, your price point, things like that will also come into play. Next is the short-sighted strategy. I feel like I just covered this, so I won't go too far into it. But once again, doing it long enough that you can iterate and actually get to the ultimate goal that you're looking for of the best performing campaigns. And then lastly is collab mismatch. So a few things to think about. So if you're like, why aren't people claiming my product, or why aren't like people, like I email all these creators asking to work with them and no one ever responds? Well, maybe you're emailing the wrong people. Maybe like your audience is should be older women versus younger women, or really figuring out who your target audience is that is interested in the product that you're selling. Next is the wrong product or value exchange. So this is, I think, one of the top things that happens in collab mismatch. If you're asking a creator to do a full video post where they're, going to the store and and making a recipe and doing all that, you're going to want to make sure that there's a big enough value exchange. Are you providing them just a small kitchen tool that's only $10? Well, that's not going to be enough. Obviously, creators aren't going to go above and beyond for that. So you have to really figure out what your value exchange is. And people ask me all the time, like, what should I pay them? How much product should I give them if it's a gifting campaign? It's really comes down to value exchange of what you're expecting from them and what you're going to give them, whether it's a gift card with it or enough products so that they really are excited about your brand. So just something to keep in mind too, if you're running campaigns on your own, using an agency, no matter how you're doing it, is think about yourself as the creator and what you're asking them to do, and if what you're giving them is enough for them to be excited about. And it really varies from brand to brand. It's not always about product value, so a $99 product that maybe is not as sexy might not be as exciting as a $50 product that is a lot more fun and fun branding and well known. So there really is not a one size fits all. It comes down to just that value exchange. Next is too much restrictions given on creators. I see this all the time too, where they just have pages and pages of like wanting to art direct every little piece of what the creator does. That's just not how social media works anymore. It needs to be they know what works best for their audience. It needs to be fit to their audience and to the platform that they're on. And then lastly is ignoring product feedback. Products, if you're getting a bunch of product feedback from your creators, like that they don't like something about it, you should probably recalibrate that product before doing more campaigns, because you don't want to ship out a product that is faulty, which makes sense. And then getting into that optimization and data and testing. So here are the 4 main things that I would recommend optimizing as you're running campaigns. So, data driven isn't a buzz phrase. Like, you can use this in your influencer campaigns. And the 4 things that I would look for is the value exchange, which I just talked about, the product that you're promoting, the messaging, and the targeting. So these are the 4 things that we're always looking at when we run a campaign, and we're always wanting to see, what do we want to tweak about it? Do we need to tweak the messaging that the creators are talking about, the unique selling point? Maybe something else is performing better. Do we need to create the targeting of the type of creator that we're reaching out to? Do we need to tweak the product that we're sending? So these are the 4 main levers that you can pull that I would recommend looking at when you're optimizing your campaigns over time. And then jumping into part 2. So how to partner with the best creators for your brand. So there's several different types of influencers. And I should note, I'm using influencers and creators interchangeably. They're depending on who you talk to, people use different terms. A lot of times influencers like to be called creators themselves, but I know in influencer marketing, a lot of our brands still call it influencers. So if I interchange that, just know that I'm meaning the same thing. So I made this little graphic because I feel like it helps to show the different categories and kind of different budgeting that you need. So you have your micro influencers, which are, we define as 2,500 to like 25,000 followers are kind of in that category. But once again, what's more important is that engagement rate. They have that like sweet spot of a good engagement rate. Then you have your industry experts. So these are people with an in-depth knowledge on like a certain category. So this could be, maybe they know a ton about hair care or beauty or food or something like that. Then you have content creators, and these are people who create beautiful content and they really understand their audience. Then you have celebrities off to the side, and then nano, which is pretty much you and I, probably anyone who has a social account is a nano influencer at this point. It's because if you can influence a buying decision, you're an influencer. So if you look at this graph here, anytime that these things overlap is normally a great sweet spot, but also normally gets more expensive over time too, in terms of that value exchange that we're talking about too. So if you're looking at that micro influencer category, sometimes you can find an industry expert who's also a micro influencer, or a content creator who's also a micro influencer, or the trifecta, which is all 3, that can really, get things going for your brand. So just a good way to kind of look at things is these are the different categories. Normally someone kind of falls into one more than the other. And because of that, your goals are going to be different depending on who you're working with in these categories. Now, beyond that, looking at celebrities and nano, celebrities also can sometimes be industry experts and sometimes content creators as well. Those are going to be obviously your most expensive, and they typically have the lower engagement rate, which we're going to jump into, really dig into the stats in a second. So looking at the facts, so IG influencers with less than 15,000 followers earn the most engagement rate of all account types. So that is really the sweet spot that I found in running influencer campaigns, is that less than 15,000, and that's where a majority of the creators in our network are. And it makes sense. It's just because that smaller network, they can foster that community. They have that higher engagement rate. Macros are on the opposite end. They have 3 times lower engagement rate. So it's just something to keep in mind. And then 91% of all sponsored post engagements in 2021 came from micro influencers. So that means, like, looking at all the engagements that happened across there, micros provided 91%. So this all tells me, and that this is what I've been seeing honestly for the last 10 years, is that micros are really the sweet spot for most brands, and how most people want to engage with creators. Also over here, marketers say that micro influencers account for 90% of successful creator campaigns. So it's not about celebrity status anymore. It's not about follower count. It's about authenticity, and it's really about relatability nowadays, especially with platforms like TikTok. And then in terms of some more data here, so people trust smaller creators over brands. There's lots of data to support that. Consumers trust everyday users 5 times more than celebrities or social stars. 71% of people say everyday consumers are the most persuasive influencers on how to spend their money. And 83% of viral TikTok videos are from non-verified accounts. So once again, a verified account means it has that little check, means you're probably a pretty big celebrity or social star. And actually, majority of viral videos are not from that, which I think is pretty awesome time in influencer marketing and just in marketing in general, that you don't need a high follower count to go viral. And I just saw it pop up. Is this recorded? This will be recorded and sent to you by tomorrow. So feel free to share it with your team. Next is social consumers crave real, unfiltered content. So consumers prefer to see authentic, less produced videos. There's data to support that. 62% of consumers want to see videos with real people before making a purchase. I know that's the first thing I do, is go straight to the reviews, and I want to see a real person, like, that looks like me, that doesn't look like a model, or that was fed words to say to talk about a product. And then TikTok ads featuring creators earn 83% more engagement than non-creator ads. So once again, it almost makes sense to exclusively look at partnering with creators for your ads. So what we've seen at Statusphere in the campaigns that we've run. So authenticity matters more than follower count. Micro influencers prioritize building trust with their audience, and they have a deeper understanding of their audience in general. So I think that's why it resonates. And they do go viral, but at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. If you're working with micros, you got to do it consistently. You got to optimize over time, and then you will see the benefits of it. And we have some screenshots here of some products there that went viral. One was a book. It's called There Are Moms Way Worse Than You. Really funny, cute book that they did around Mother's Day that went viral on TikTok. And then we've also seen several posts go viral for like a big wipe company called Crocodile Cloth. And I'm pointing this out because, once again, you wouldn't picture like a big wipe company going viral, I think several years ago. But if it solves a pain point and it's a good product, like, you have a shot on TikTok and Reels. So what do the best creators look like? They're comfortable promoting products on camera. They're creative. They resemble your target audience normally. And that's because typically with micros, their audience tends to reflect their demographic versus celebrities who have people of all different demographics. So that's something to just keep in mind as well. And I will get to questions at the end. So feel free to drop questions in, and then at the end of the recording, I'll answer as many as I can. So how to pick the right creators. So start with your followers and your brand advocates, and obviously your customers. So think about who is regularly tagging you, who's regularly buying your products. I actually like to create like a persona, kind of like a marketing persona, but like a creator persona, where you pull together examples of your ideal creators, even if they haven't worked with you yet. And you can even give them a name and like a person, and it makes it kind of easier for you to think about, where do they shop, what do they tag, what do they do, and then you can like search based on that. So then you can conduct searches now that you have this persona built out in your mind, and be like, what kind of hashtags does she use, what kind of things does she purchase? And you can start seeing, like, maybe they're a Target shopper, so you want to go see who's tagging Target, or maybe they're an Amazon finds shopper, so you want to look for Amazon finds. So here are some example hashtags: mom style, beauty hacks, clean talk. Clean talk is actually a whole category of TikTok just with cleaning. Very satisfying if you're OCD like me. So those are the types of hashtags that you'll find based on creating this persona, which will allow you to find more people like them to reach out to. And then, you can always, instead of seeking them out, you can encourage them to come to you, and by putting out content that attracts them as well. So tips for pitching influencers. So make sure to reach out to them where they want to be contacted. This is super important. So some creators are very particular about either a DM, they like DMs, or they hate DMs, and they normally put it right in their profile. And I think one of the best ways for someone to block you or get mad at you is by not reading their profile to see the way they want to be contacted. So typically it's either a DM, which is stands for direct message on Instagram. TikTok, I do want to point out, you can't DM on TikTok unless you both follow each other. So that makes it a little bit more challenging. So you probably won't be DMing there. But then there's email, which you can find their email sometimes right in their bio, or they'll tell you how to contact them, or they'll send you to a contact form in the way that they've created it. So just make sure you're respecting the way they want to be reached out to. Otherwise, you're going to be starting off really on the wrong foot and not get anywhere that you want to. Next, keeping your pitch positive, welcoming, and customized. The biggest thing oh my gosh, as a creator who got pitched brands myself, like I could tell so many of them never looked at my content. Like I was like a food and baking blogger, and I would get pitched mattress companies who weren't even like trying to pretend like they looked at my stuff. And honestly, obviously that makes me just go put it straight in the trash. And I talk to creators all the time, and that is the case. So you want to make sure that it looks like you've looked at their profile, because you should have looked at their profile, and maybe even call out one of their favorite posts so they know you took the time. Next is being crystal clear about what you want and what value you offer them. So many times too, can we collab? And that's all it says. It doesn't even like give any specifics. And it's like, this is a ton of, like, a lot of creators, especially micro ones, this is not their full-time job. They want to know exactly what it is, what they're going to get right there, make it clean and simple so you can make this collaboration happen. And then lastly, really think about that value exchange. Don't go messaging people. Oh my gosh. I mean, one of the spammiest things that a lot of people do, I hope none of you do it, I don't think you do, is they email people like, oh, we'll give you 50% off of this if you post. And these are, creators creating great content. Like, you better be at least giving them a nice set of one of your products, not just making them pay. Like, that's a huge red flag for creators. Never make them put in their credit card. They will not work with you. Yes, it's very cringy, but I'm sure you've all seen it before. So do not do that. So we have like a whole guide for this, and we can share that after too. But here's some pitches that actually got answered. They very specifically say, like, we think you'd be a good fit for this because of this, and click here to see the details. So that one was one that clicked out. There was a DM that got answered. So we do have an ebook specifically that covers some. It also covers ones that did not get answered. These are all real screenshots that were taken. They don't use people's name. That's a huge, don't ever always use their name, or at least their handle if they don't have their name out there. You don't want to call them, beautiful or lovely like these direct messages do. But these are all real ones that have been sent. Also, leaving it in the comments is also a bad deal. Do not do that either. I think Instagram's really cracked down on that, and they'll actually suspend your account. Also, if you send too many DMs that are uncustomized, they will also shut down your account. So you do not want to do that. So next is how to plan your campaigns and roll them out successfully. So when looking at your ideal campaign timeline, the way that we look at it is that you want to see them grow and have enough time to optimize. So we've talked about that. So you can do 3, 6 month, or over a year actual sprints that you can optimize over time. So campaign commitment is, make or break. You need, the biggest mistake we see is not letting your campaigns run long enough so that you can optimize. So it is one thing if you do want to start a new campaign based on your old one and optimize it a little bit. But I do recommend most of the time at least running like the same type of campaign for at least 3 months before switching initiatives. There are always exceptions to this, but I do find that gives you enough time to learn from what you're doing, especially if you're newer to influencer marketing. Then how to budget. Brands ask us this all the time. How should I budget for influencer marketing in general? So B2C product brands allocate 18% of budget to of their revenue to their overall marketing budgets. So that's an average based on a stat survey done by HubSpot. So I'm starting there just to give you that. If you're wondering how should I set my marketing budgets in general, it looks like B2C brands are typically spending or allocating about 18% of their revenue for marketing. So start there, and then you're going to want to break it up into your different marketing channels. And if you're doing influencer marketing will be one of those marketing channels. Because like we said before, doing a marketing mix is what's best for brands, doing 3 or more, at least, marketing channels together. So look at that budget, dedicate a percent of it to influencer campaigns. Something interesting is that influencer campaign or marketing was rated as the fastest growing online customer acquisition channel, beating organic search, paid search, and email marketing as marketers are finding out how valuable it is. And then view it as that long-term investment. I would recommend budgeting on an annual basis. So here, this graph on the right here shows 2022 influencer marketing spend breakdown of how much brands are spending. So I just think it's helpful as a marketer myself, and if I was running a brand, to know what other people are spending. So you can see that 30% are spending between 10K to 50K, 37% are spending less than 10K, and you can see how it's slowly been inching up over time too as brands have been expanding. But pretty interesting to see how much people are really, shelling out for this marketing category. So start with your overall budget and then figure out how much you're going to be spending on the influencer piece for the year. And next is how to pick a platform. There's new platforms all the time. It's hard to keep up with. You want to make sure you're putting enough energy and resources to get the value out of it. So if you can do, TikTok and Instagram, that's obviously great, especially if it's right for your brand. But if you're looking to just focus on one, it's helpful to like really look at the demographics, which I'll get to in a second. One thing I do want to highlight here, though, as our secret number 4, is don't bank on coupon codes when running on platforms, especially like TikTok and Reels. We actually see that it makes campaigns perform less well when there's coupon codes involved. And I think my hypothesis for this would be it's just less authentic and it feels like an ad, and people don't want things that feel like ads. So we do get brands ask a lot, like I want to put a coupon code for tracking. Well, first of all, we already talked about how tracking is very cumbersome and very hard to track for this category. But to be honest, I don't even feel like coupon codes fully fixes it because they have their own set of issues. And then on top of it, it can actually hinder the performance of your campaign. So just that's secret number 4 to keep in mind when running your campaigns. You might want to think twice about coupon codes. I do think there's like a time and a place where they can work, but just as a whole, that's what we see. So now diving into the breakdowns of demographics of TikTok and Instagram. So on the left here, you can see age and gender on TikTok, and on the right, you can see age and gender of Instagram. As you probably assumed, TikTok does have a younger skew younger, but you can still see they got people on it all the way to the 55 plus category, and those categories are growing. But at the same time, really that 18 to 34. If your audience is in that category, then TikTok is going to be a great choice for you. But if you're going to hop over to something like Instagram, you'll see a majority of the audience is in that 18 to 44 category on that side of things. So just something to keep in mind if you can only, afford to invest in one, or if one only really makes sense for you. Like if you are really going after the oldest generation, it might make sense to go more on Instagram. So how to pick a product that's perfect for influencers. So now you're ready to start your campaign, you've set your budget, and now you're like, I want to pick my product to send out. I alluded to this earlier, but I think that really thinking about your hero product is super important, of the product that really hooks people into your brand, and then hopefully expands overall. Not only will that just help you overall as a business, so think about it. If you have one product that has your highest conversion rate, your people love it, has one best reviews, all of that, not only will the influencers be more excited to get that product, talk about that product, and you have less risk of them disliking the product, but also when they get other people excited and they purchase it, hopefully they will purchase your other products as well, especially if it is that hero product on your website. But other things to keep in mind is cool factor. So if there's some novelty to it, something kind of interesting about the product, that could be an interesting, especially for TikTok and Reels, where people want something that's kind of unusual. If it has a striking color, or specifically you want to pick a product that when people see that product, they're not going to confuse it with someone else's brand. So make sure it has very clearly your brand on it, or very clearly something that people would want to buy your product versus someone else's product. And then products framed as feel good or positive seem to do extremely well, especially on TikTok. That's like one of the top categories people go on TikTok for, is like to make themselves happy, or lifting their spirits is why people go to TikTok. And then easy to ship is also helpful. So if it's something that breaks a lot in transit, just know that that's going to be probably a big headache for your team to keep reshipping it, and things like that. So you might want to just think through, like, is this something too that has a really great creator experience? Because if the creator opens it and it's broken, that's always a bad start to their experience. How to get creators on board and making quality content. So make sure the value of your offer matches your ask. Back to that value exchange. If you're asking for them to create a bunch of content, you better be giving them a lot of value on their side, if you want them to get on board. Think through the value exchange, and what they're going to be doing. So, are they, creating that whole recipe? You're probably going to want to provide them budget or a gift card or something to buy all the other pieces they need to create a recipe with your products, or craft, or whatever you're trying to do. Give influencers creative freedom. They know what their followers respond to, and they know their audience and the platform's best. And really just always know that like incentives are aligned. Creators want their content to be seen. That's why they create, and that's why influencers put content out there. They want people to see it. So you want people to see it. So like let them do what they think is going to get the most people to see the content. And then set clear expectations and be prepared to answer questions. So, if they are asking you questions about the collaboration, answer in a timely manner. Make sure that, I would work with brands sometimes and I wouldn't hear back for a few weeks. And now that I'm on the brand side and I've been on the brand side, I know it can be tough, but it isn't always a great look for the brands if you don't have someone like dedicated doing that. It can backfire on you, and they might just ghost you now because they felt like you ghosted them. And then we talked about this secret number 6, don't send the bad apples. You want, to be driving sales to your popular products. So part number 4, examples of successful creator campaigns. I'm just going to cruise through some of these that we've worked with and seen really great results from. So I mentioned this earlier, Curlsmith, they were targeting women with curly hair over, to so much content in a 10-month period, over 6,300 pieces of content created. They killed it by sending out a hero product that people loved. I think this campaign performed so well because their product was so good. It had very little product feedback from the creators, and they just like truly loved it, and it had really great before and after content. So if you do have a product that falls into that category, I would recommend that. Another one we worked with, Real Good Foods, like have people go in and get their products, find it in the grocery store in the frozen food aisle, which is cool to kind of see people picking that up in the store. I'm posting about all the different types of foods that they picked and their favorite ones. Another one is Marley's Monsters. It's a reusable paper towel company. Very cool. It really has struck a chord on TikTok. They've only been running the campaign. Now they're at 3 months and they've over 4 million loops. This is one that is clearly solving a pain point, but is also very visual because they can show people pulling these reusable paper towels just off of a paper towel roll that you're used to being paper. So that like novelty and very visual aspect of it translates very well to TikTok. So they've had a handful go viral. Next, Workman Publishing, launching their book that I mentioned earlier, Mom's Way Worse Than You. This one also really struck a chord in terms of that lifting spirits aspect on TikTok and Reels that we talked about. So just to recap, one of the main things that people go to TikTok for is to lift their spirits, mean smile or be happy. So this product really, hit home for them. And they had several viral posts from that. Next, Ulla Henriksen, great skincare company, also one where people just, really enjoy their products. They have some really great hero products with some great before and afters. So they've used micros to really ramp up overall their branded hashtag, and they work with celebrities, but these micros are still accounting for, like a quarter of their content that is trending on TikTok. Hours saved. What does hours saved mean? That's how many hours on our by using our platform these people saved, because they didn't have to do it themselves. Our platform did it. But great question. And then Pre-Mama Wellness, they were targeting specifically women who are trying to conceive or were pregnant. Or had already had a baby with like lactation support and things like that. So they used our platform to get lots of different creators posting. And we saw this one perform well, I think, because of that whole creator match. Like these creators, were specifically at that, point in their life where they were either trying to conceive or, or were pregnant. So this like fit perfectly into their lifestyle, perfectly into their feed and to their followers. And they did it to support key retail accounts, including Target, Whole Foods, and Sprouts. So they made sure that all the creators, through our platform, made sure they tagged it and supported those key accounts. So those are some just highlights of totally different types of brands that we've still seen really great campaigns for. So hopefully you can take some inspiration from that as you pick products and run campaigns of your own. And then to wrap up, so influencer marketing approaches and how they compare. So getting started, how to get your campaign up and running. So there's no one size fits all. There's a few different ways you can do it. So I'm going to go through them now between like DIY and outsourcing and kind of just so you can get a lay of the land of what's best for you. But Before trying to run campaigns yourself or working with a third party, things that you should ask yourself is which method requires the most time and energy, which approach is going to guarantee content, and how much control and involvement do I want to have? Because that's going to put you in different lanes depending on that. So first, let's start with DIY. I do recommend DIY for anyone who's never done it before. If you've never run an influencer campaign before, I don't always recommend, or no, I really don't recommend going and hiring an agency or a platform to scale. I recommend at least doing a few on your own, just so that you can like have an understanding of your audience, of the process. If that is a possibility, I would recommend doing it a little bit on your own just to have some insight of how it works. Because I find that what happens if they don't do that and then you end up hiring an agency or a platform, that you'll end up having mismatched expectations, and you also don't even know what the type of creator that you want to reach out to is. So I do recommend this for just starting out. It's good starting point. But there are some downsides. It's obviously very time intensive. Like I talked about at the top of the call, it takes 70 hours just to get 30 people posting. So this is probably not something you're going to be doing long term if you're going to build this into your overall strategy, unless you can really build out a full team in-house to do this. So expect that there's going to be a drop-off rate. You're going to ship products. People will ghost you. This is ideal for less than 10 influencers a month. Also, if you're 10 influencers a month, that's a handful of hours versus 70 hours. So that would be a good category for that as well. Know that you'll probably have to, you're going to be handling shipping. You may need to eventually hire a dedicated team member as well. And you'll have to vet every influencer partner. Next option is agencies. So with this, you hire a team to run the show. So you're essentially paying for their time versus guaranteed content or posts in general. So with an agency model, I've worked at agencies and I was on that side. They typically charge on an hourly basis, and they're typically going to tell you they will reach out to a certain amount of creators. They won't guarantee the posts or anything. It's just, we will reach out to this many. So some questions I recommend asking when you're going to work with an agency. Do they guarantee posts? How many do they guarantee? Do you handle shipping? Because that's going to be time intensive on your part, and probably going back and forth a lot can be a headache. Do you have flexibility to change between post type, or are they going to lock you in to like only TikTok or only Instagram? Can I see example of other brands you've worked with? We've seen several agencies that might be really good at Instagram, but like haven't done any TikTok. So these are some good questions to ask if you're going to go with the agency model. And then self-serve platforms and databases. So these are platforms that you can essentially go to, and there'll be, a search bar at the top, and you can search in like beauty influencer, and it'll return you like thousands and thousands of people. You then have to look through them all, search them, message them. So they help you some, because there's a little bit of a search feature, but it's still pretty time intensive. So just know that. So I find a lot of people will go from the DIY and graduate up to using some sort of self-service platform. You're still going to have the drop off. It doesn't include any of the influencer compensation. You're going to have to probably still handle that. And also the costs of the shipping and stuff. So with that being said, if you are looking for a scalable influencer marketing platform, that is why I created Statusphere. That's what we do. So it saves the most time. You get credits per month that you can apply toward campaigns. You can pivot from TikTok to Reels. It's really easy. So if you do want to talk to one of our team members about this, click the link there. You can book a call. I promise we are not salesy. We'll make sure it's a good fit for you. We can get you a demo, see if it's a good fit for you. If not, we have tons of content to help you do it yourself, as you can see, like this webinar here. So feel free to click on there. And that's going to wrap up our campaign. So I'll jump into a few questions since we have 5 minutes left. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to leave up on the screen our next webinar. So we do these monthly. Our next one is going to be on TikTok SEO, how B2C brands can rank in the social search. Very exciting new topic. If you haven't heard, TikTok is actually taking over search from Google. So Gen Z is actually more likely to search things on TikTok than they are on Google. So talking about, how you're going to set your brand up for success to show up in these searches. So scan that QR code if you would like to attend that webinar. And now I'll jump into a few questions. So let me scroll up. And Sam, if you see any that are highlights, feel free to post them again at the bottom, but I'll start from the bottom here. So Heather, is IG checkout the best way to go when using influencers on IG so they can tag your brand? Great question. So if you set up the shop feature on Instagram, you can have people check out. I do think that it is one of the best ways for conversions because, like I talked about, Instagram doesn't like people going off the platform. But there are some downsides to it, like the fact that Instagram is going to start charging a cut on it. I believe they keep delaying when they're going to start doing it. So that is a downside to look out for. And it still is a newer feature, so there's not as much data on it. But it is a good one to look at for sure if you are already doing Instagram shops and testing that with your brand. Do you recommend working with the same creators every now and then as you scale, or continue using different ones? That's a great question. I recommend a mixture. And we actually, in our platform, we added a feature where if you see a creator you really like, you can flag it for re-engagement, so you can constantly keep working with them. I think that finding creators that really embody your brand and working with them on an ongoing basis is not only a great way to really build that relationship with them, but then also that relationship with their audience, because now that audience knows this isn't just a one-time and done collaboration. Wow, this person really uses this product in their life. So obviously it'll be different depending on your type of product, but I think that is a great goal, is to re-engage with like more and more of your favorite creators, so you eventually have a pool of your favorites and new ones mixed in. When you say keep your campaigns running to be able to track, are you speaking about ad campaigns or organic campaigns? Good question. I'm talking about influencer campaigns. I'm talking about viewing each influencer campaign as that little block that I was talking to you about. So to me, an influencer campaign is made up of 4 parts. It's the creative brief, which is, the messaging of your brand, the product that you're going to be shipping out to the creator, and then the overall value exchange that you're giving. So when I say campaign, it's essentially all the creators who are going to be doing that you ship the same thing out to and given them the same directions. So if you pick, 25 people to do that to, you're going to want to see how those 25 people respond and track all of the response to it, and then see, oh, of those 25, I noticed like 5 of them performed really well. What were similarities about them? Because let me put that in the creative brief for my next influencer campaign. So that's what I mean by optimizing. Do we send out products for you to ship to the influencers for us? With our platform, we do handle the shipping, and we have that integrated into the platform. Other platforms don't always have that. So you definitely want to ask if you're going to work with an agency or something like that. But our platform, we do handle shipping for you. Next is coupon codes. Are consumers looking for a discount, or will they buy without a discount or incentive? I think it really depends on the industry. So I don't know if I can have a blanket statement answer there. But I do want to just reiterate that we don't see coupon codes perform well across the board, or just generally. And I think that's because influencer marketing works best with authenticity. Like, it needs to be authentic. And as soon as you're like, hey, you could buy this headset with a coupon code, it kind of makes it not seem authentic as much as me just telling you how great this headset is and how it's the best one I've used and you should use it. So if that kind of gives like an example of why I personally think coupon codes don't always resonate. Now, I don't think it, like, I'm sure there's still campaigns and situations where coupon codes can make sense. I just think as a general rule, I wouldn't lean on it because also it doesn't help too much for tracking. So it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. If you do talk with one of our team members, we're happy to give you recommendations or, what we think would work. Or you can email me after with your specific situation, and I'm happy to weigh in. How do you know if the influencers and which are driving sales? Great question. I would recommend watching our attribution webinar. Maybe Sam, drop it in the chat, the link to the attribution webinar, because that is a can of worms of how to track what's happening, especially in a post iOS world, so update world. iOS 14 update world. So yeah, I would recommend watching the webinar because I don't want to just give you the snippets or the footnotes without the full context. What's the starting price of working with Statusphere? Great question. We have lots of different plans depending on goals, your goals and what you need. If you book a time to chat with one of our specialists, they'll be able to get you that type of information by asking you some questions and then telling you what the starting point would be for your brand. You mentioned engagement with influencer being a key metric. Do you feel that higher engagement equals higher sales or higher reach equals higher sales? Oh, that's a super good question. So I don't know if I could say which one's which, because engagement as a whole has some um, there's different ways to look about it. So, for example, engagement on an Instagram static post, the way that we calculate it is likes plus comments divided by follower count. So that lets you know, like, okay, this is how much engagement this post has. But then if you look at something like Reels or TikTok, I would almost argue that the engagement is the loops itself, because if it's getting more loops, then it is getting more engagement, which kind of also falls into your reach category. So that's why it's a little hard for me to answer that, because we find that on TikTok and Reels, the engagement in terms of like likes and comments to the overall real place engagement rate is pretty consistent because of the way the algorithm works. So I guess at the end of the day, it's kind of reach, but I think engagement is also indicative of reach, if that makes sense. So it's kind of both. With that. So it looks like we're right at time. So I'll wrap things up here. If you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me an email. You'll get an email from me with the recording, and you can just respond to that if you have any other questions. Feel free to book a time with our team. We'd love to chat with you, and have a great rest of your day. Awesome. So glad you all enjoyed it. Bye.